Okay, welcome back to history. Today is Thursday, October 22nd, and we're going to finish up our student activity page on God's providence. Now, we're going to review really quick. You guys remember what history is? If you don't remember, look at the very first little arrow at the top of your page. History is a record of God working in the lives of men and nations. Okay? Now, if you go down to number 5, what is providence? Providence is God's care. He takes care of his creation. God's care and control of men and nations. Notice it's both of them have to do with men and nations. Because history is the plan of God for man, for all man, everyone. Okay? Now, on Tuesday we talked about Proverbs, was it Proverbs 21:1? And it's right after number 5. I put it there for you. It says in the Bible, in Proverbs 21:1, it tells us that the king's heart is in the hand of the Lord, as the rivers of water. He turneth it whithersoever he will. In other words, he turns the king's heart any way he wants it to go. So on Tuesday, we also talked about water, how you could change the direction of water by getting some dirt and building a little dam or building a little canal to get the water to turn in a different direction. God can do the same with people's hearts. And in Proverbs 21:1, it talks about the king's heart. But you could replace the king with the president's heart, the governor's heart, the mayor's heart. That's why we should pray for our leaders, that if they are doing something that is not right, then they would, that God would intervene and help them to see what they're doing wrong. Now we're on page 13 of our student textbook, okay? And we see the verse again there, Proverbs 21:1. The king's heart is in the hand of the Lord. He turneth it wherever he wants, okay? That is God's providence. God has a plan for man, and we participate in God's plan. We don't work for God, we serve God in getting his plan accomplished. The Bible teaches us that God is in control of all his creation. God has a plan which he's working out for all men. History records God working in the lives of men and women. God is also working out his plan for each nation, and the Bible teaches that the king's heart or the president's heart is in the hand of the Lord as the rivers of water. He turns it wherever he wants them to go. Proverbs 21:1 also tells us, by me kings reign. Because of God, those presidents or kings are there to serve God's plan, and princesses decree justice. Proverbs 8:15 and Daniel 2:21 says God tells us he removes kings and he sets up kings. He puts them there and he takes them away also. So they need, I had a mosquito on my arm. So they need our prayers to help them do a very difficult job to govern our country, right? So in question number 6, how would God turn the heart of the king? How does God turn the thoughts of a king, his decisions, the way he rules? How does God turn it? Okay? Can God make you say something you don't want to say? No. Everything we do is in our heart. What we put in our heart, that's the decisions that we make. So God can put something in their heart. He can put things in their heart. So for number 6, that's how we're going to answer that question. And I have it here for you already. God puts things, or you can put thoughts or ideas. God can put a thought or an idea into their hearts. Is it just the kings that he can do that for? No, he can do that with me and you also. He wants us to do a certain thing, and he can give you revelation, he can give you discernment, he can give you visions, he can give you dreams, he can give you thoughts, he can give you ideas. There's no limit to what God can do. Okay? Now, so if we know that he can put thoughts in your heart, can God give you different thoughts? Yes, he can. Number 7, yes, God can do that. But you have to be careful. You need to read the Word of God, because Satan, our enemy, can also put thoughts in our head. He can also give us bad dreams. So when God speaks to our heart, we need to know who's talking to us. We don't want the enemy to trick us, because he's very deceiving. Number 8, might he, in other words, God, might he make certain things happen so that the king would think differently? So if we have a king or a president or governor or mayor who is doing something wrong, should we just go out in the streets and start rioting? No, we can pray for them. If God's people, his church, would pray for their leaders, God can turn their hearts and change them and give them a soft heart, a kinder heart, or even a stronger heart, that they would not be manipulated by the wrong people. So, might he make certain things happen so that the king would think differently? The answer is yes, he can. God can do that. And number 9, why can God do that? Why would God do that? Why would God change the heart of, why would God change, there's a mosquito bothering me. Why would God change the heart of a king or a president? God has a plan, and he puts people in leadership to fulfill God's plan. We've been talking about that since the beginning of school in chapter 1, 2, and 3 of our textbook. God has a plan, and we're here to learn. We read our Bibles to learn what God's plan is. He's still bugging me. I haven't been taking my vitamin B. When you take vitamin B, your mosquitoes don't bite you. Okay? So, God puts things in our heart so that his plan would be fulfilled. Okay, so number 9, why would God make a king think differently? If God put the king there and the king is not doing what God had planned for him to do, he could put ideas in his head to serve his own purpose. The king is there to serve God's purpose, not the king's purpose, but God's purpose. The king or the president. We use uppercase H because we're referring to God. His is referring to God. To serve God's own purpose. Purpose is his plan, God's plan. Okay? So, what is history? A record of God working. God is working in the lives of men, kings, presidents, governors, mayors. God is working in the lives of men and nations. God sets up kings and presidents to run a nation. Okay, providence, God's care and control of men and nations. God, it was God's idea to have nations, so he takes care of his nations and of the people in each nation, and he assigns leaders to fulfill God's purpose. Not the president's ideas, not the governor's ideas, but God has a plan for every nation. All right, and it was a very short lesson. That's the end of our lesson, and we'll continue with God's providence next week. All right, bye-bye.